The night of the dance of the gods. The village square was filled with dancing witches. I thought my heart would stop because everything happened so fast. It was the most scary night of my life. My name is Boma. I am the witch hunter's personal assistant. I had been chosen from birth to serve the witch hunter due to circumstances of my birth which my parents have not disclosed to me to date. That night, I was standing right next to the witch hunter, holding his calabash of charms. The moon was full, and the wind was howling through the trees like a spirit calling for help. The witch hunter's drum sat on the ground in front of him, its surface worn smooth by years of use by unknown spirits. Everyone in the village stood at the edge of the square, holding their breath. The witch hunter did not speak much that night. He just looked at me with those sharp deep eyes of his and said, "When you hear the sound of the drum, don't move." I nodded, but my hands were shaking. Inasmuch as I had different experiences of witch hunting with the witch hunter, I didn't know what to expect this time. The witch hunter had left on a one-year journey to an unknown forest and he came back with the local drum. This was going to be the first time I ever heard the sound from the drum. The witch hunter began to drum, slowly at first. The sound was low, like distant thunder, and then it grew louder and faster. The rhythm was strange, almost alive, like it crawled into your ears and made your body want to move. Then it started. One by one, people stepped out of their homes. Not normal people. These were people you wouldn't expect. Mama Blessing, the sweet old woman who sold yams in the market, was the first. Her face was blank, her feet moving to the beat as if she couldn't control them. Then came Jaguar, the blacksmith, and his wife. Their heads lowered to the side like doors as they danced into the square. The scariest was little Miriam, no older than 10. Her eyes rolled back as she twirled and spun, her tiny feet keeping perfect time with the witch hunter's rhythm. "Keep still." The witch hunter screamed at me when I took a step back. By the time he stopped playing the drum, the square was full. Men, women, children, they were all there, swaying, some muttering strange words under their breath. The rest of the villagers gasped in despair and shock as this event was unraveling right before their eyes. Then came Samson, the king's guard. I froze when I saw him because Samson was the strongest man in the village. He once carried an entire tree on his shoulders to help rebuild someone's hut. More and more people came. Some I recognized immediately, like Brother James, who always prayed the loudest in the church. Others were strangers to me, drifters who must have been hiding among us. But they all had the same look, their faces were empty, and their bodies swayed like leaves in the wind. The villagers around me gasped, some whispering prayers under their breath. A few of the women started crying, clutching their children. No one dared to step forward. The witch hunter's drumming got faster, his hands moving so quickly they were blurry. The witches and wizards began to dance now, their movements jerky and wild. Some twisted their arms in ways that didn't seem natural. Others spun in circles so fast it made my head spin just watching them. And then they began to laugh. It wasn't an ordinary laugh. It was sharp and high-pitched, like the sound of glass breaking. The witches laughed in unison, their voices mixing together until it felt like the air itself was cracking. "Steady!" The witch hunter hissed at me, his voice barely louder than the drum. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But I held my ground, clutching the calabash tightly. The witch hunter's drumming suddenly stopped, and in the silence, the witches froze. They all turned to face him, their heads tilting at the exact same angle. "Show yourselves," the witch hunter commanded, his voice echoing in the square. And that's when I saw it, their shadows. They weren't human anymore. Each shadow twisted into something monstrous. Wings sprouted where there shouldn't be any, claws stretched out like knives, and their heads walked into the shapes of animals, horned goats, hissing snakes, snarling leopards. I took a step back, my legs trembling. But the witch hunter stood firm. He reached into the calabash and pulled out a handful of powder. He threw it into the air, and it burst into a golden cloud. The witches screamed. It wasn't laughter anymore. It was raw, angry, and sharp enough to make my ears ring. They tried to run, but the powder seemed to hold them in place. "Now, you all know them," the witch hunter said to the crowd. "There is no place for evil in our land anymore." The villagers stepped forward, their fear replaced with anger. They grabbed the witches and wizards, dragging them away to be dealt with. The witch hunter sat down on a rock, exhausted but calm. As the sun rose, the square was quiet again, except for the witch hunter's steady breathing. He turned to me and said, "Now you know why we do this. The village must be safe." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I'd ever feel safe again.